Can you call the meeting to order?
Okay.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the agenda.
I'd like to move that Tess Kruger's closed session be the last item on our agenda.
I'll second it. Did you move it?
Yeah. Move the last, make it the last item on our agenda, final item on our agenda.
After all the discussion items?
Right,
Yes.
right, that's okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes from last week.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
A second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Public comment period. Reminder of no personal attacks are allowed. And state your name and township.
Brian Van Gorp, Yucatan Township. I'd like to make the point that all rulings regarding the Erickson mine have been invalid. And the reason they're invalid is because they've all been based on false information. Bob Scanlon has filtered all information going to
That's an
EQB.
attack.
That's a personal attack.
We don't bring up names.
I'm sorry.
He's filtered everything that's gone to the EQB, the judges' hearings, the Planning and Zoning Board, and you. He said repeatedly that there's no permit violations. Well, there is, and I have proof of all 6 of them, and I would like the opportunity to present that evidence before the final decisions are made. We've been denied due process by not being allowed to present evidence, and this whole process then has been based on a lie. So it's all invalid. And why is it become incumbent upon us to take everything to court to be heard by you people? We filed an appeal. It was sent back under erroneous claims that that decision was made by a board, not an individual. Well, the decision that there was no permit violations was made by your Planning and Zoning Administrator, no one else. It is clearly an appealable offense, and we want the right to have due process here and have our evidence heard. Thank you.
Brian, do you have any of that evidence with you today?
What's that?
Do you have any of that stuff with you today?
No, but I can get it.
Okay. Yep, if you get a chance.
And some of it's self-evident.
Steve Hartwick, Bunny Creek Township, resident 38 years. Despite my t-shirt, I am a Houston County resident. On January 9th, 1992, at the Planning and Zoning hearing prior to the approval of the Thorson mining, there was a discussion with the Hoylands and the manager of the Ferndale Country Club. And at that time, Charlie Weezer made the statement that they would not, this is a quote, not cut into the bank, unquote. To me, that is a grandfathered provision that can't be modified. I'd like to repeat that, will not cut into the bank. Another thing that was mentioned was not creating a, quote, water hole, unquote. I'm wondering in the findings of fact if there's going to be a listing as to where the water table is and if the mining is going to happen inside the water table. The third thing that's specifically mentioned at that hearing, Bruce Lee mentioned the cedar tree screen, and anybody that goes by there knows that the cedar trees have been removed. They were caught in the act of removing it. This is a violation of the conditional use permit. I know that they started an EAW on this project and there was engineering done. I would like to know about the boring samples as part of the findings of fact. Is the silica at what depths and what percentage of it is silica that's being taken out of this mine. There's also the fact that they're being limited to 10,000 yards. How is this going to be monitored? I'd like to know as a fact how this quantity is going to be monitored. I'd also like to know about noise limit monitoring. Thank you.
Thank you.
Donna Buckby, Yucatan Township. I was the sole signatory on the EAW because the state of Minnesota would only allow one person to sign and be the contact person. But there were well over 100 citizens who signed that petition for an EAW. And to my knowledge, not one of them has been asked if he or she thinks that the EAW is irrelevant. It doesn't matter about who is the financial backer of that mine. What matters was the location and the damage that could be done to the neighbors, the water, the air, the tourism industry, the fish hatchery, etc. So you all had approved the EAW, and we want this to continue. We want this to be completed in a professional, truthful manner.
Kelly Stanage, Houston, Minnesota, Houston Township. I would just like to ask about the transparency of the Frac Sand Study Committee meetings. The last Frac Sand Study Committee meetings, there were minutes generated for each meeting, and they were posted on the website. I haven't seen that for these meetings. The public is getting no information unless the public is able to attend a meeting at 8 o'clock every Monday morning. That is not transparent. This is a very controversial issue, frac sand mining in Houston County. And in order to maintain or at least build back public trust, it's essential that on a controversial topic like this, that you make information about those frac sand study committee meetings very, very public. Tom Landwehr made that very clear in his comments at the EQB. John Link Stein, Commissioner of the MPCA, made that very, very clear. I would think that would be logical. In addition, the confiscation of public property at the beginning of these meetings is pretty much intolerable. A basket was passed around for people to put their cell phones and video cameras in prior to the meeting. Confiscation of private property, of personal property, of people attending public meetings is unconscionable. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to address the board? Not Brian?
Hi. Morning, Commissioners. I have with me Doug Ramsey today from HSR Associates out of La Crosse. They have been the firm that was talked about a county several years ago to design up, to work with the county in designing up a new public works facility. So, since this was actually 2009, we've worked together on this project on and off. There hasn't been a whole lot that's taken place in this over the last couple of years. Just a few minor tweaks here and there as far as looking at how big a facility we need to have if we removed different departments out of the building that were initially on the plan. And we've also looked at staying on the current site versus over by the proposed site by the middle school, high school. So Doug's going to open up some previous files that were presented to the board and looked at previously, but there's nothing new that some of you haven't seen before. Here's how, is there, oh yes, a couple things. But,
What an updated cost estimate and other things.
we'll have Doug take over.
Well, thanks for letting us present some information today. Just bear with me. Okay, so as Brian had mentioned, we've been working, well, we were working quite hard on the project in 2009, and then we did a final design development presentation. There's a PDF booklet if anybody wants to have that made available to them. And then we have done some different iterations and different cost estimates and things probably over the last 2 years. And have been told by Brian that you'd like us to maybe talk about today is potentially putting the current design that we had done by the high school and see how it would potentially fit on your existing property. So, I'm not sure how you think it shows it. Rather than going up to the screen and pointing it out. But you can see right now I've got an overlay of, this was our design in 2009 on the property to the high school. The high school is to the kind of lower right-hand corner. The highway is out on the left-hand side. You can see that we had kind of an entrance drive. Some of this extraneous paving was for the DOT that was going to be located in this facility as well. So some of that can go away, and actually, if you can see my cursor up here, that part of the building will actually not be happening because as of right now they would not be a tenant. The areas that we have shown in brown are areas that Brian had previously told that those would be potentially part of a phase 1 project. Which is the office area, office building, engineering department in the front, along with probably 2/3 of the vehicle maintenance bays, just would be just to the south or to the bottom. And then this other, how do you guys usually present drawings and things in here? Not very easily.
Not very easily.
Okay. So that the other brown building to the right-hand side, that is the large vehicle storage facility. Yep, and then all the other areas that are kind of shown in that orangey pink, those would be kind of a phase 2. And those are, I think part of it was the sign shop up towards the top, and then just one of the bays in the vehicle maintenance. And then we had an unheated vehicle storage, which is a long building. And then we had a cold storage building, and then the salt storage building. So those were the kind of pieces of the building program we worked with.
Got it back.
There's a document that Brian and HSR put together back in 2009 that kind of justifies the square footage and space needs for storing the number of vehicles, the number of people that would be in the office facility, the area for the salt building, everything that we needed to store in the cold storage area. So if we go back to my first slide, we can kind of see how that kind of overlays on your existing property. So kind of right, maybe I should zoom in. I've got one that's zoomed in just a little more. So what we did is kind of made the drawing transparent a little bit. So Your existing facility is actually right in here. This is the office building that Brian's in. And then you can kind of see here's one of your other buildings. This is another building. Not sure if that's a building, but you can kind of see this is the area that kind of they kind of have right now. And this is all kind of fairgrounds property. So if we were to, I think maybe before I start to get into this, we think that there's not really a way to phase in construction on this site without really getting rid of, demolishing all of the buildings on the site. Because of the grade change from the street down to this edge down here is about 20 feet. So we'd have to do, we'd have to bring in some fill, maybe make this area lower, bring some fill into this area, do some retaining walls along the edge of the trailer park. And actually, as we see it now, we think we need to encroach into the fairgrounds property, which probably isn't that great of an idea to do, but just kind of showing the area that we think it takes for vehicle turning radiuses and other things, how to get into the site. So once again, this is kind of the engineering department of the new facility. This is the sign shop. Here's our vehicle maintenance area. We'd have parking a little bit here along the street and then over here again. Vehicles we would probably like them to enter this way, and then they'd come around to get into the large vehicle storage or miscellaneous and then exit out this way. This would be our large vehicle storage where we could get trucks in from each side. This is the salt storage. This is the cold storage area. We also need to plan for some water retaining on the site because of the amounts of new hard surface that we might be introducing, or roof area. This is about half of the area that we're planning on at the new site, just because we already do have some existing hard surface area, so they're going to allow us to kind of grandfather that in, but we still need some areas, since we're going to be draining down this way. We thought this would be a good area. You know, you could just start to build part of this building and then wouldn't need maybe all of this kind of part of the site along the fairgrounds, but we think there's not really a way to keep your existing buildings in operation and then kind of slowly construct these buildings because of the grading from zero to 20 feet down slope this way. We think we need to do all the site grading at one time and then start to put the new facilities online.
Do we own the building that Meyer is in?
No.
So we'd have to purchase that?
Correct. We own the land that the fairground is on, but that is leased to the fairgrounds. There's another 4 years remaining on that 25-year lease. I know they don't want to give up any land down there.
During the summer, that's used for horse shows.
Yep.
And during the fair, it's used,
Right.
For parking.
I should also point out that this, the darker kind of gray would be hard surface, blacktop, and we'd have concrete aprons around the buildings. And then everything kind of shown in this brownish light gray would be gravel that would come around. So there's a way to put these on your property, but probably not a way to start to infringe on the fairground land that they use. It would take some creative grading to make all the buildings set at different elevations and have adequate ways to get our trucks around.
How long would it take to build this building?
If we were to do-
If they started in spring, it'll be done by fall. 'Cause I'm thinking about taking the buildings down and having buildings.
No, this is probably a 12 to 14 month construction time period.
Do you have other options? This is the only option that the board's ever really seen, and I know Brian had mentioned you wanted to bring in some people to show us other options, not so large. Did you have anything like that with you?
No, we don't. That all comes down to, in my mind, of going back to the design, starting, I don't want to say starting over, but really, what do you need
Yeah.
How big of the buildings do you need? How much expansion do you want to plan for?
Yep.
Things like that, so.
And this building, when you look at the brown areas, the engineering area, that essentially matches what we have currently for office space. There is no extra room for office space for additional staff. The only change in sizing essentially is a larger break room than what we have now, which is our break room / meeting room. Planned storage all on the same level instead of upstairs and downstairs, because there won't be a basement under this. And the main entrance area, having a little bit bigger space for our accounting staff and the main entrance when people come in and out of the office. Restroom facilities is bigger, and there's some lockers and stuff. But that's essentially bringing stuff that's downstairs for the lockers, upstairs to the main level, a little bit bigger size-wise for the bathrooms to meet ADA requirements. But there really isn't anything extra that we don't have. And I don't think anything else can be really shrunk down from where it's at without stripping down the space that we currently have. And no one in the building has extra space. So there really isn't space to shrink out in that main building.
Now, you guys said that this was from 2009. I know back in 2009, it was going to be this huge colossal deal where licensing was going to go out there, and surveyors were going to go out there, and all this kind of stuff. And I noticed when we talk about storage for vehicle storage, one of those storage facilities on the north side of that had 24 parking spots, plus we got heated storage, that there's another 12, plus all the storage for the bays. And I know it was designed that way because originally they wanted to bring the satellite shops and have it one central location, which I don't think anybody has interest in doing now. So the question is, if we're not going to do that, then that probably should get scaled back.
The number of, go back to the other slide with things. Well, actually,
I can actually show you so like this.
Okay, yep, this one. I was going to say, on the previous picture in the brown area, that had licensing and environmental services removed. So that area has been eliminated from the original design.
Go back to that one you just did.
That'd be the one up here.
Well, we were going to,
Yep, this one
that
up here.
upper right-hand corner, that's kind of the area that we wouldn't have in the building. So we'd reconfigure the
This
building,
area.
to probably be more rectilinear in shape.
Yep.
This area right here would all be gone, because that is where we had the surveying and environmental services and maybe this was the surveying, DMV, environmental services, a break room that was talked about having, or a room, meeting room for both
Community.
the office staff along with community. And then there's some bathrooms up there that would be eliminated because there's other bathrooms down here. So essentially this part would be gone, and that's already changed colors.
About 2,800 square feet.
Yeah, so that's been eliminated from the original plan. Otherwise, if you go to the building, the heated storage, this is the base for the large vehicles. We had 12 bays. I think our latest plan, we knocked it down to 10. Right? Or is it still 12? I think it's 10 now in the latest plan.
You mean the plan where I just put X's through things?
Yes.
Yeah, probably.
So once you figure out all of our trucks along with the motor graders, every bay would be full. We could fill 12 bays easily with what we have for crane equipment, our water truck, the water / brine truck and stuff. So if we went on 10, we might have a couple pieces outside, like have them inside, but there is no extra bays in that. This area, this is bigger than what we need to have, if we're not going to have some of these other people into our building. But there was talk about, we had stuff for all of our pickups, for smaller equipment, such as our mower and that type of stuff in here, instead of the other cold storage building. Also, sheriffs get, they may start impounding vehicles and stuff, having space for them if we want to have something locked up under cover versus outside in a chain link fenced in area. They need to keep their stuff under cover for a while until they get through their investigation and thing becomes possession of the county or gets turned back to the landowners. So that's why this is kind of sized as it is. We talked about in this current plan, having that be a second phase, go without that. Everything currently is outside as far as pickups. The sheriff's won't stay with their vehicles are at, but they do have a shed in the county that they store stuff in. So we can go without that building for phase one, but at some point, if we're going to build, if we're going to use, and they have some storage, yeah. So if they're going to use the highway department for storage in the future, they need to have a place inside the storage. So that's kind of why that is sized how it is.
So right now, you've got 12 bays up top, 24 there, plus the 6 maintenance bays, so there's 42 possible stalls, I guess. My thing is, right now, we don't have any spots right now. So we go from none to 42, and we still keep our satellite shops. Now, I know we only have 6 plow trucks that are here at the county in this satellite shop. So you can have all the plow trucks in the maintenance bays, plus still have all of those left over. I'm just saying, let's scale this back a little bit instead of grandiose. And I know the board has talked about that at a previous meeting when I brought it up. The board had said, no, we're looking at other options, not necessarily just this one. So I'd like to start seeing some options to scale down and stuff too.
Yeah, and, storing equipment inside of maintenance space isn't, why would you want to do that? You have equipment that's broken down, it's being repaired, you take out an engine or whatever you're repairing, that truck's not necessarily out of that bay that day. So yes, it is once going in that bay, right? Then you have a different bay that's going to be empty someplace else.
Right.
But as equipment changes over time, as we talk about having the sheriff's vehicles being maintained or doing maintenance on small vehicles, oil changes, stuff like that inside of bays, at the highway shop. You start scaling things down to a bare minimum, which right now we're already at a bare minimum for the most part, with getting everything under cover. Why would you want to scale down any less? And then 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 2 years from now, the county board says, let's hire another mechanic, let's do more maintenance in-house, and then all of a sudden we're starting to put stuff back outside again. Let's make sure we build it the right way, so this building's designed to last. It's going to be useful for the entire life cycle of the building, not useful for the short term. I don't want to overbuild. I don't want to underbuild either.
What happened to the idea, I know you and Steve were talking about selling half the land and moving it out by the high school?
I thought it was still on the table, but I haven't.
Oh, yeah, that meeting about.
Yeah, how many acres do we need? What's the acreage requirement?
Our initial design, I think we were taking up, I believe it was like 16 acres out of 22 acres. By the time you put the ponds and stuff in, you take out some of the parking by not having the DMV and the other visitors coming over there and using that facility. You eliminate some parking, which will help downsize some of the ponding area. So essentially, everything to the north of the building for that driveway and that parking area would be minimized or eliminated. So I would say we could probably squeeze down to 10 to 12 acres.
And how many acres do we have up there?
Probably 22.
22 acres, and you would need 10 to 12, half of it.
And then also with the neighborhood directly to is that the east?
Yes.
You had talked about potentially moving the whole facility to the west to get those kind of the sight lines maybe a little different, which then maybe opens up another chunk of land there for selling off, whatever. What I'm talking about is that if you took all of these things and moved them further to the west, because here's the cul-de-sac right in here, and this would be the road extension to the high school, then maybe that opens up some land along this road that you could develop into
Commercial.
something, yeah. But then once again, to the neighbors over here once, I guess they can't have the best of both worlds, but.
Yeah, it might need to be screening of some kind, trees.
So I guess it all comes down to building programming of essential needs, wanted needs and then future expansion.
Right there is where you hit it on the head. What we need, I know, we all know we need to replace the maintenance facility. I guess I'm still caught on when did we go from replacing the maintenance facility to a maintenance complex, I guess is what I really struggle with. As far as if we need to replace the building, we replace the building, but replacing one building and then adding 4 other ones on top of that, I know for a fact we don't have money to do that, but I guess that's the thing is how can we get our needs, what you just said, our needs fulfilled, yet still be able to expand in the future when more money becomes available? Like, do we have those options?
Which
You know,
we
is that-
might have those
What?
options out by the high school area. If we sold half the land, we'd have money to put toward future expansion.
Mhm.
Where here, we really are limited.
There's no expansion ability.
Well, there's not, when you use a really big colossal project like that, there's not. But what I'm saying is, could we scale that back, still meet our needs, and still fit on that property? Yeah, I think you can. Actually, I know you can. You know, when you start bringing that building back, we don't need 42 parking spots in covered facilities. Well, you could scale those buildings back and start to fit on that property. Right now, what was proposed in 2009, no, it can't fit, but we know that that's more than what is necessary. So, yeah, that won't fit, but I still haven't seen an option scaled back. I mean, we know that this, what's being proposed right here, we know, and Brian had brought it up before, that this building was going to be approaching $4 million. My question is, where, you know, that's the Cadillac, that's the Ferrari,
Yep.
where's our Volkswagen, where's our little bit less expensive
Well, I think what we were,
options?
in this one, we were trying to say, you wouldn't need to do this right now.
Yep,
Wouldn't need to do this.
correct.
Wouldn't need to do this, or even,
Yep.
you know, half of it. So you got the large vehicles, and even if that goes to 10 bays, I
Yep,
mean, you know, 10 spots. And then obviously, you know, parts of this building are already gone. We can reconfigure it. Do you need the sign shop there? I don't know.
well, and I know Brian
Those are-
mentioned,
those
we
are some
could go
things.
without that one and keep it where it
You
was,
could,
but,
you could eliminate some maintenance bays in here that you don't really need and shove this up and have expansion capabilities in the future.
yep,
So-
exactly.
So really, then you're only, you're talking about an area in here, but then you're still gonna need, you know, you could probably leave some of the areas that you already have in use right now for other things, so maybe that means you only grade half the site. I'm not sure, but.
Well, and I know, and you weren't here for this, but I got a 3D model where you could do, let's say you do that, the office building, the maintenance, you do that. Where that salt and sand storage is, instead of going this way, which really limits, you know, you have it, or I don't know which direction it looks like you're going in from, but you have your building tilted so it goes more north and south, so you come straight in. You've got your cold storage, you could pull over closer and still have your vehicle, your heated storage, and get rid of your other storage facility, and all of that can fit right on that property. So I guess that's what I'm saying, you know, you've got one building going linear this way, which is taking a lot of room to the east, and those other 2 buildings could come far
Yeah,
over.
I
you know what
haven't done any.
Well, I know, but I'm just
I
saying,
tried to show you what.
to say it won't fit, I don't agree with it won't fit. You can make it fit or scale it back so it does fit. I get a little hesitant trying to
Well, I guess
fit
we
a
were
square peg in a
never,
round hole.
we were never hired to look at this site and put new buildings on there. So I
Yep.
just quickly put our current design from out by the high school
Yeah.
on this site.
And it has nothing to do with, I'm just
Yep.
saying, as far as the board goes and everything, there's other options available that we haven't seen yet, is my point.
I guess if I were you guys and you're, you know, serious about doing something, I would resurrect your design committee or whatever we had in 2009.
Yep.
Start meeting on a monthly basis to get some ideas and move stuff around.
Well, and we were kind of doing that, and I guess we got to a point where we brought in, and like I said, I had everything put on 3D so we could kind of see where everything was going to fit. And at that point, the board had said, well, we're not going to go with the big project. We'd like to see other options, and that's where it stood. It's been a standstill since. So.
Did you
then-
do that 3D stuff in SketchUp or something like that?
In SolidWorks.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. So it's all to scale, everything's there overlaid on Google Earth, so everything's all.
Because that's what, I did this in SketchUp the other day.
Sure.
So, I don't know,
Good.
if you could
And I don't,
import back and forth.
we might be able, we should talk about that, we might be able to. But anyway, the whole point is I'd like to see something else. I know we had talked, and maybe you could fill some light on this. we only have X amount of dollars that we can spend on this project, I guess, I would like to see a budget put forward and say, this is how much money we have, this is what we have to work within our means. I don't know if that's a common way to do it, is live within your budget, or do you usually have companies come in with a blank check and say, design it and we'll figure it out, or?
No.
Okay.
We were working with Weezer Brothers
Yep.
on costing and stuff, so we could bring them back in and start working.
Yeah, maybe that would be a start too.
Did you
Some of
say you
us,
had new
some of us
numbers?
really want to look to the future at this
Yeah, I
project
don't-
also. I have a real hard time with going to this site, taking away land from the fairgrounds, taking the neighbor's land if we need to, and when we have land that's right there that we already own, which we could expand in the future if we needed to. I don't agree that this is the right place to put the new building.
I like the idea of the land out by the high school and selling half of it, put money
I
toward
think what we
it,
need, sell the rest.
rather than trying to.
I don't see a new
improve it.
facility fitting very well in the area that we have now, in my opinion anyway. Expansion ability, limited,
And take,
got a runoff problem there.
When you build on that new property, you got the infrastructure cost, that thing.
Yeah,
Which is
Which you don't have,
$1,000.
which you don't have on this one.
right, but you can look to the future for it. I mean, you can look into the future. If we're only looking at today's issues, we're not doing our county justice. We need to be able to look to the future. I'm not saying to build something for the future right now, but to be able to lay it out so that we can add on to it in the future.
Start small or something like that.
That's
Let's
the
just
same
look
argument-
at
same argument they used with our jail, which was overbuilt.
Well, I want to expand on Judy's looking to the future thing, because that's good, and we should look into the future. Looking into the future, we know that our tax projections, if we're going to continue on, at the average of which we did in the last 10 years, we can look at about a 3.11% increase, or $328,000 for next year. Plus the following year. In 2016, we have 27 pay periods, an extra pay period. That's going to bring in another $417,000. So we know that over the next 3 years, there's a potential for $1.3 million increase to taxpayer dollars. So looking into the future, we have to be cognizant of our budget in the future. We can't just say, oh, looking into the future, this would be a great building to have 20 years from now. If we can't afford it now, we're really strapping ourselves in the future for other things. We had the sheriff's department just came in and said, we need to have this $190,000 piece of equipment. We've got the highway department, we need to have these buildings. We need to decide what is that we really need so we don't strap our kids, our grandkids with a burden down the road. That's looking into the future. It's easy to say looking to the future, a beautiful building. But now you're looking at only having a nice building, but you're forgetting all the other departments, all the other taxes, all the other things that have to go on, that you might be getting yourself into trouble. I know certain people don't like me bringing up the jail, but it's a great example. You put all your eggs in a basket, and now in the future, we're getting hard pressed for other things down the road. So you have to look at the future from all angles, not just one angle. And that's what I'm trying to do, is look at it from all angles. Yes, we need a building. The problem is you put too many eggs in this basket, it doesn't leave a lot for the other one. We're still paying off the jail, and will be till 2031. You put in another $4 million project on top of that one. We know that we had maintenance issues, that we needed more equipment. We've got the sheriff's department that needed stuff. We have human services, public health. We have all these other departments that are going to need stuff in the future too. I hate to keep throwing all this money into these brand new buildings that are a little bit bigger than what really needs to be done. That's looking to the future. Let's look at doing something living within our means that's able to be expanded upon down the road, but isn't going to strap the taxpayers for money. That's the key thing, is how do we do this and live within our means? I brought up that I would like to see this capped at $1 million, and there's logic to that. We don't have to go to the taxpayers for new dollars. We can still have our cake and eat it too, if you will. We can still get a new building, live within our means, but not strap the taxpayers. Now that was turned down, I assume only because we're planning on spending more money than $1 million, but I know the board had said we're not planning on spending $4 million, so we know that it's not going to be this big. So to say we don't want it at this site or the other site, we haven't seen any of the options. Maybe over at the high school is the best option, I don't know. But regardless, the facility that is being proposed now was in 2009 when a lot of things were different. Now we're using old data and still trying to push it through. I'd like to see something scaled back. We know we don't need to have a lot of this stuff.
Justin, you keep implying that I'm saying that we should go with this $4 million building.
I haven't heard you say anything else, Judy. We voted on scaling it down. You haven't scaled it down.
Did you hear me just say to look for the future where we add on the different parts that we do. I was not saying build the whole thing here, so stop making things seem like I'm saying we're spending $4 million on a building, because I'm not.
Okay, so let's go with that. Then we agree we're not spending 4 million. So then let's see the option less than that. I haven't heard any
What is
other
it? What is
commissioner
it
other than
costing
Dana and I
us?
talk about
Well,
scaling this back.
This is probably going the other way, but what I did was take her, I mean, you gotta get to reality, so. So what I did was take our, what I did was take our 2009 cost estimate, which is in the yellow. These are for all of the, at the new property. These are for all of the different buildings. So you could take each of these buildings and take them offline and subtract it from the total. But, and then what we did was take an average of 3.5% inflation over 5 years. Something like that. So we got 15% total. No, I only took 3%. Because we've been averaging between, 2.5% to 4% inflation, depending on the year, labor, materials, whatever. So I took 3% over 5 years, 15%. So, yeah, the site work, we were estimating almost at 1.2 in 2009. Now we're almost at 1.4. The office building, what I did here, I've got 2 office buildings. So the first one is on the upper in the yellow. That was when it was almost 13,000 square feet, and now we're down to about 10,000 square feet, which is the thing below. So back in 2009, we were at 1.63 million. Now with inflation even, but a smaller building, we're at 1.47 for the office building. That's at $125 a square foot. And that's pretty reasonable for this size of building. We just did some cost estimates, and hopefully we're going to start on a design for a new emergency services building up by Rice Lake. And we were projecting $163 a square foot on that building. But that was only a 3,500 square foot building, so you have economies of scale when you start getting more square footage.
What's the square footage on this office building and maintenance, Jim? Okay.
The office building is 10,000, 10,185.
The office is 10,000, okay.
Yep. And then the shop area is 13,570. And I have some copies of this if you want it. So.
Yeah, I think we're looking at all the options, and yours is one of the options we're.
So anyways, I'll just continue down. So you got all the buildings that we're looking at, the shop, the large vehicle storage building, the cold storage, the salt gravel storage. We've got fixed equipment, which includes computer wiring, phone system, some vehicle hoists and connections, miscellaneous costs, contingency, AE fees. We've got some money to relocate the radio tower and relocate the fuel storage building. So back in 2009, for the entire grandiose, if you want to call it, project, we were at 5.9 million. Now we're up to almost 4 million. So you can start to, subtract off things, make things smaller.
But even just the site prep, the shop, and the office, even if you cut all the other buildings out, we're still at 4.2.
Site prep in the office would be about 2 points. You mean your
Site prep right there,
Yep.
1.3 million.
Yep.
The office is going to be another 1.6,
Correct.
and then you got the shop, so.
Yeah.
That's not the large storage.
Now, have we looked at options as far as other materials this building being built out of that?
I think we did back in 2000.
We looked at both the precast concrete panels and metal.
Yeah, right
Steel.
now the office building with the shop are precast construction, durable, and then the large vehicle storage and which is connected to the large vehicle storage building would be precast as well. And I think the cold storage building, we were looking at maybe just a wainscot of concrete and then going metal up above that. But I know a few years ago, we had done a cost where we went to mostly metal on all the buildings. So that's it, but that was options and other things.
Even at $30 a square foot on 13,000 square feet, you still do the maintenance vehicle storage or maintenance shop for $450,000.
$30 a square foot?
Yeah, on a metal building.
Is it a pole building?
I want to say with metal girders, metal inside I-beams and all that. So I'm just saying there's other options. This isn't directed to you by any means. I'm just saying there's other options that would
But
be
you
nice to
have,
look at.
but we have
Well-
to meet certain codes as a government building.
We'll still do all private entity buildings as well.
Yes and no.
Well, any commercial or industrial
Yeah,
building
has to be
has to be
reviewed by the
closed.
state. Yep.
Correct.
But we can get into all kinds of details there. And that's where I like to bring Weezer back into the mix.
And that's what I think we need to do.
You know, so,
Yep.
because we can go back and forth on costs all day
Dollar
long.
amounts, I think, about.
Well, I think the other key thing, I know you touched on it too, is we as a board have to figure out how much money we're going to allocate towards this project. I mean, like you said, you don't usually just blank check whatever, I mean, we usually have a budget to stick with, correct?
Well, no, in 2009, it was more of a study to see
Right.
what your needs were, how they would fit on your new piece of property, and to establish a budget for those needs.
Yep.
And that's what we did. And we haven't been officially hired again to do any more studies and work with people on working within a budget if you have that. So,
Yep.
I think we should send it back to the committee. You continue with more options and more prices.
I like the idea of Weezer's coming in.
Yeah,
I'd like to see what $1 million buys.
Yeah, let's
What do we
let's
get?
see what happens.
Just for curiosity.
Because it's tough to just come in with one option and say, this is what we got to have. Well, I don't know. I have nothing to compare it to, you know.
well, it all, I mean, when you say $1 million, is that?
I don't want to
See,
throw
you
away
wanna
$1
see-
million, you know. You know, you
You
throw $1
wanna
million
see it
at a project.
On the new site and on the existing site? I mean, because if you start to put $1 million on your existing site, then that, in my mind, says, well, we're never leaving here. It's a, people are gonna right away say, we're not gonna tear anything down, we're just gonna remodel it, you know, blah, 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 all that good stuff.
Well, that's what we got to figure out is what does $1 million get us? Maybe it gets
Not
us more
much.
than, I would debate that. I would debate
Well,
that.
if you're trying to build an office building for all your needs, you're not gonna get that.
Well, that's
done for
something we got
$1
to figure out too. We've got, you know, what does the office space need to look like? Does it have to be out there? We've got issues now with the jail that people are saying, let's remodel the jail. You got office space there. I mean, there's other options that
Sure.
we need to weigh out that maybe the office isn't part of it. And
And the
it's a
size
building.
of the building is quite a bit smaller.
Right, I mean, those are the options to look at is where are we at? We got one option on the table. Where's the other one? But I've got two companies that we're doing some work with right now that put up 55,000 square foot buildings, all steel, metal buildings, big, you know,
Yep.
and so I know, you know, and for what they paid for it, they, $3 million, I think is what it was for their assembly with the HVAC and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, and that's a huge building, which is 3 times the size that we're looking at. So scaling it back, I know it's possible. And I know for maintenance wise, we don't have to have grand glorious stuff for a lot of maintenance. So I'm just saying it'd be nice to look at some other options.
Yep. I agree.
Thanks for coming.
Anything else?
Hopefully I just didn't stir up the water.
No, it's
Maybe it gets you going a little more.
Yeah.
So we're moving on, yeah, it gets us moving along.
It's a
Yeah.
thing.
baby steps, we'll get there.
All right, thank you.
No, where are you guys based on?
Across.
Oh, yeah, right, yeah. I think
Yep.
I mentioned that.
Yep.
I guess you will give a real brief overview of what your company does as far as design and what type of projects you work with.
Sure.
Yeah. that would be
Sales
good.
pitch, yeah, let's see. Commercial.
Well, HSR used to be, people used to refer to it as Hackner Schrader Wilczynski. Back in the 70s, we incorporated and have multiple shareholders. I'm one of the 5 majority owners of the firm. We've been in business for 60 years. We've done everything from the airport in La Crosse to the city hall to the civic center. Right now, we're very, very busy. We're probably the busiest we've been in our 60-year history. We're working on everything from football stadiums up north with turf fields at high schools to we're finishing up the drawings on the new student union at UWL. We're doing all the Western Technical College work in La Crosse, so their $80 million referendum. We do, probably about half of our work is K-12 education. But then another component of our work is state of Wisconsin work, where we do multiple projects for the military, and a lot of them are maintenance facilities and vehicle storage buildings. So presently we have one in construction in Wausau. That's all the northern Wisconsin tanks and all that stuff they get shipped on there for maintenance, all their large trucks and things like that. We just did a large facility in Madison as part of their Armed Forces Reserve Center, which has a component called their FMS-9, which is all their Madison area vehicle maintenance and storage of large vehicles and things like that. So we're a generalist firm because we can't survive in a small part of Minnesota, Wisconsin without doing a whole variety of different projects. So we think that makes us unique, and we don't just throw out cookie cutter ideas on projects. We're open to all ideas and kind of really tailor each project to each of our clients. So.
A lot of experiences to pull from.
Yep. We did the Onalaska maintenance facility. That's probably the one that's closest to the area. That was probably done about 8-9 years ago.
2003, I think.
Okay, 10.
Let me ask you a question. That's the one that we were talking about with like all the solar stuff or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Your experience with that, is that something that you see kind of coming down the pipeline, that looking at those alternative energy sources of building a building?
Yep.
Is that kind
I mean,
of...
even just like 3 years ago, we would have only considered solar. Well, we did it 10 years ago. We must have got some rebates, but up until recently, there hasn't been a lot of rebates on stuff like that, unless you're heating pool water or things like that. But now it seems like it's becoming, the technology is becoming better, so you can actually energize parts of your building with that solar. We also, on that Onalaska facility, we have what we call solar wall, and it's a perforated metal thing, and it preheats air going into your building, so that you can, the sun, I don't know how it sucks air through there, and it preheats the air before it goes into the air handlers and all that kind of stuff. So there's other simple technology you can use on simple buildings to make it more energy efficient.
So there's some neat alternatives to keep our eyes out for.
Yeah. And I know the high school didn't have a good first experience with the geothermal, but that's a good source to, there is an initial investment, it's more expensive, but over the long haul, you're going to pay less to heat and cool your buildings. But maybe on these facilities, since you really don't have much of a cooling load, maybe it doesn't make sense. But we have done smaller geothermal units, maybe just for office areas and things like that. So those are other alternatives we can take a look at.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Guess we can move on, so you can jump before we talk public hearings. So we had a bid opening yesterday for shouldering County State Highway 2 and 16. Shoulders were damaged during the 2013 flooding, and we had one bidder on this bid opening. The bidder was Rooney Rock Products. Their bid came in at $54,693.30, which is 26.29% over our estimate. The estimate was $43,308. So quite a bit above the estimate. Two reasons for that. One is that there isn't a whole lot of approved quarries on those areas, so there's not rock readily available close by. So we some trucking for some rock out to these sites. The project's not big enough to justify bringing equipment to crush a bunch of rock at a closer site. And then besides for the besides for the trucking and the actual hauling distance, just the general overall scale of this, that small scale, it's a day and a half worth of shouldering, so it's fairly minimal. So to get the equipment in here to do the shouldering, and haul it out. There's a mobilization cost that's also in these numbers, but that's a little higher to the scale. So I am going to recommend to approve Brunier Acrobatics for this work, even though it is already an estimate. This is flood related on what's called the federal highway system or the national highway system. So this is not FEMA money, but it is federal highway emergency relief funding. So there is special money coming in specifically related to the 2013 floods for these specific roadways.
I make a motion to go ahead and accept Bruning's bid and get the work done.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Right. What percentage of that is federal reimbursed? Is it all of it or just part of it?
I'm going to need to double check that number. I believe the state picked up all of the local costs out of it, but I'm going to double check.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very committee, Brian mentioned that they need a commissioner on the safety committee they have. Is that right, Brian? You want to mention that?
Yeah, I can mention that real quick. We have a safety committee that consists of the safety officer, which is human resources. There are specific departments that are named specifically as being safety committee members, which is highway, sheriff's office, safety, crew coolers, one or two other departments I believe listed as far as being on it, plus any other departments that want to be on it, along with every union can have a representative on it. So it has several people on it. Most of these committee meetings have 15 people. We talk about issues with safety at every county facility, whether it's the AEDs that have been added to most facilities, the fire numbers on the doors, the locks on buildings, so fire department, sheriff's office have access, stuff like that. The MSDS sheets for chemicals. One of the things that's not listed on that committee that we don't currently have is commissioner. We've been meeting, lately we've been meeting quarterly. When we have more stuff going on, we've been meeting every other month or whatever, but for 2014 we're meeting quarterly. Next meeting is July 17th. And talked to Sharice also previously, the commissioner assigned to that committee. And I think it would be a good idea to have a commissioner on that committee, just because it is dealing with the safety of all county employees and our facilities. If someone's willing to be on it and able to attend one more meeting every 3 months, that would be appreciated.
I'd like to volunteer.
Thank you, Dina. July 17th, you have that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Recess. Yes, we have to recess this meeting to open our public hearing.
Move to recess.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Call the public hearing on the zoning ordinance amendments.
Good morning.
Form 4.
I guess just to catch up to speed, the ordinance amendments, everything within the ordinance, page by page, was addressed here since last October, except the mining ordinance. We didn't touch on any of that because there's a separate committee that's working on those updates. But it went through many meetings over the winter and spring through this year here. And on June 5th, the Planning Commission held a public hearing and recommended approval of what we're going to go through here today. So if you want, I guess I can just go through step by step, section by section, just touch on each of them. Okay.
Yes.
You can share.
All right, starting at the beginning, well, section 3 is where the First Amendment is what we're looking at. Last fall, we added interim uses to the ordinance. There was an applicant that amended the ordinance to include non-commercial family cabins, and an interim use definition was added, but it wasn't added to section 3, so we went ahead and put that in. In addition to that, campgrounds, there's thought through the years that, in fact, we do include campgrounds as a conditional use in an ag district, but for some reason there was never a definition of campground. It was assumed over the years that it was more for commercial purposes. But as you can see, if you read the definition, what we come up with, and what we did is took Department of Health's definition from the state of Minnesota, and basically it's 5 campground, or 5 sites, tents, or recreational vehicle sites, and whether there's a charge for use or not. So that's the campground definition that we've come up with. Moving on to section 5, we changed a little bit on after the fact permits, or beginning without a zoning permit, or the penalties that are attached to it. We took out the $75 per day fine if a landowner is not coming in compliance. I talked with several counties on their thoughts and if they had done something similar on that, and some of them felt they weren't even sure it was legal. So we did take that part out. We ended up in a different part of that section. Went from doubling the application fee to now tripling the application fee is what we're looking at proposing there. And of course, projects that are less value, like less than $1,000, may be exempt from tripling the fee. Moving on, just a small change there under temporary use permit. If there's like a hot mix plant, typically we see those come in the summertime. They get a 90-day temporary use permit. If they require additional time, the change there is to fall under an interim use permit instead of a conditional use, because as you recall, interim uses are something that you can attach a time period to, so that just kind of made sense. Under section 6, conditional use permits, small change there just to kind of reword it and make more sense. An approved conditional use permit shall expire if the use approved has not commenced within 9 months. So we kind of want people, when they get approved for a conditional use permit, to follow up and get something going there, not to just tie up land. And also under findings of fact there, under the same section, little change there in number 6. Basically, this is the criteria that Planning Commission, county boards use when looking at whether to approve or deny a conditional use permit. Number 6 had to do with potential pollution hazard, and this just asks if a potential pollution hazard has been addressed. A little word change there. And that's going to have to do with, for instance, a building site. Did they submit a design for the septic system, for example? So simple change. And that's reflected on the next page there as well. Section 7 under interim use permits. Our findings of fact are basically the same for conditional use permits as they are for interim use permits. So the same type of change there. Under section 11, Planning Commission. As you recall, the county board last fall amended the ordinance to limit the terms of a Planning Commission member to 3 3-year terms. The study committee looked at that a little closer and is recommending some changes there to just kind of help clarify. I'll just read part of what they're asking here. The Planning Commission shall consist of 5 to 7 members appointed by the Board of Commissioners. Members shall represent different geographical areas in the county and, if possible, represent at least 4 commissioner districts. If townships administer their own zoning ordinance, those townships are free to set up their own term limits. So everything in yellow is what we're proposing to add here. Everything that's crossed off, as you can see below, is what the Plan Commission is recommending to take out. So over to the next page, under subdivision 2, number 1, as the term of office being 3 years and 3 3-year terms, they state that a maximum of 3 consecutive terms equaling 9 years would be the maximum. And past members are required to sit out 1 full term before being reappointed for a position. These limits are at the discretion of the board. So that just hopefully clarifies there the intent of the county board from last fall. So just some clerical changes there under section 11 findings. Just change width to 2 and different things like that. Over to section 12, Board of Adjustment. Looked at updating our ordinance to be more in line with what state statute has done in the last few years here, as far as how county boards of adjustments can view variances. And statutes have changed as far as how those boards can look at after the fact standards, but that's no longer suitable. And basically all variances are looked at the same, with the practical difficulty being kind of the impetus behind it. It's not so much a real hardship anymore. It used to be if an applicant came in to apply for a variance, they really had to show that there's absolutely no other place they could go. For instance, a structure that's too close to a property line, it was really kind of burdensome for the applicant. This does loosen it up a little bit and falls in line with, like I said, state statute. But basically, it still needs to be in harmony with the general purposes of the ordinance, and still should be consistent with the comprehensive land use plan. And like I said, it's more of a practical difficulty as opposed to a direct hardship on the applicant. So that's just a change to fall in line with statute. Under section 14, you can see there's several things crossed off there. Bituminous plants, exhibitions, home occupations, temporary ag employee housing, commercial outdoor recreation area. Those have been crossed off or deleted from the conditional uses and actually added under an interim use now, is what's being recommended.
So they're in there just in a different area.
Right, yep. So you'll see them as we go down through here under interim uses. And I'll just name them off one by one. Like I said, last fall, interim uses were introduced to the ordinance, and the only one that was added, or a use that was added under that, was the non-commercial family cabin. But now in addition, after much discussion over the winter, we've added your manufactured home for temporary, that's a temporary home for family members under medical hardship. Number 3 would be activities requiring rural isolation. Could be a lot of different things there. Your auto body or mechanic shops, your level 1 and 2 home occupation, your temporary ag employee housing, second farm dwellings, your occasional special use, and definitions that go with each of those to kind of clarify what we're talking about for each of those situations. Number 9 would be recreational and lodging activities. We got several of those in the county I think that maybe we can address now with the addition to the ordinance. 10 would be your temporary solid waste collection or recycling operations, and that's not including the county-owned sites. 11 would be your startup businesses and definitions of those. 12 would be, there again, what used to be under conditional use permit would be your bituminous plants, your exhibitions, commercial outdoor recreation, and kind of the catch-all other uses. Things that maybe we're not thinking of at this point in time. That might come up that we could fit under that type of interim use. Then you'll see under limited industry districts, section 18 and section 19 are similar as far as the changes that have been proposed for those, they have to do with the adult uses in the county. We've had an adult use ordinance in our within our zoning ordinance, I believe since 2004. At the time it was amended or adopted by the county board, it did require a license, and that use would be directed and only allowed within the limited industry district or the general industrial district. And last time I checked, there's only 9 of those sites within the county. But what we're doing here is adding those under interim uses, which is more restrictive than what used to be. Used to be simply going through a background check, meeting all the standards and criteria to get that adult use license. Well, this would also include a public hearing and an interim use permit under those industrial districts. Okay, so section 29, just some simple word changes there. Moving permit to zoning permit, since we don't have moving permits. Some clarification on when an interim use permit is required under adult use, section 35. Just an addition of that definition when it's required. Section 37, our existing subdivision ordinance. You also note a lot of these, like our adult use ordinance, we took out the table of contents. It was kind of redundant. We changed the numbering. For some reason, the numbering was different back in '04. We changed the numbering of each section to coincide with the numbering within the rest of the ordinance. Did the same thing with the subdivision ordinance, updated the numbering scheme there. And I asked Dick Walter, the county surveyor, and Brian Pogodinsky, the county engineer, to review it as well as bring it through the study committee to maybe amend or if they've seen anything that as far as definitions or specifications or terms that would be more up to date compared to what was in the old ordinance. And they had several changes, as you can see. We'll go through here just to help clarify. Number 11, monumented, that was by the surveyor. Going down through here, a lot of the yellow, anything that you see in yellow was an addition by the county surveyor, county engineer. You'll see under 3708 subdivision design standards, they changed the width of a local street from 60 to 66 feet. Well, that's just a pretty common width of a street is 66 feet, not 60. Not sure why that was ever put in there, but just kind of went through here, and a lot of the similar type changes were meet today's design standards from MnDOT. Some more clarification in which part of MnDOT's road design manual we're referring to. So Brian was really helpful in putting that together. Going down through some just additional changes there you can see. The biggest change was the inclusion of, or the recommended amendment, adding the subdividers agreement to the subdivision ordinance. Already in place today, there's a timeline for like street improvements to be added to a subdivision, like the blacktop, when that's supposed to be done, and specifications to meet as far as the shoulder width or the depth of the compacted base under street. We always rely on our county engineer to help out with that type of thing. And we always, it's in the existing ordinance where these things should be done within 30 months of approval of the final plat, or when 60% of the homes are built. But there was nothing in the ordinance to tie that subdivider to that timeline. Well, this agreement helps do that. This agreement would be recorded with the final plat. It would be notarized and everything, that they would meet those timelines and kind of hold their feet to the fire as far as getting the street built in a timely manner. We've had a couple of subdivisions over the years that You know, maybe the subdivision sold and the original subdivider wasn't even around anymore while the street never got built. So it was cumbersome to get through that, and hopefully this would alleviate some of those issues as they come up. But if there's any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them for you.
I think Dana was on that committee and they spent many hours.
Everybody did a good job, a lot of hours in all winter. A lot of thought went.
Is there any comment from the public as far as the new ordinance? Yes?
Go ahead, Marie.
I'd be interested in the findings of fact for the CUP as well as the IUP. Number 6 has changed. Does the proposed use create a potential pollution hazard? And it's been changed to, have potential pollution hazards been addressed and have standards been met? And it would seem logical to me that if you are requiring that standards be met, that you identify what those standards are. There are some, common standards with regard to pollution, and, it might be worthwhile to list all applicable federal, state, and local standards and any other applicable standards, just to make certain that this isn't, that this can be consistently administered. I'm not sure, Commissioner Chomey, if you actually talked about identifying the standards in your meetings, but it would seem to me that you might want to list some of them just to facilitate the consistent administration of Houston County ordinance.
I think it would be,
Yeah.
it'd be good to list those standards within the minutes. It'd be listed in the minutes what standards we're talking about.
Okay.
To
Federal,
address the
state, and
pollution
local
hazard.
standards.
Yeah.
Okay.
Steve Hartwick, Bunny Creek Township, 30 years. One of the things that bothers me today is that we're having this meeting at 10 o'clock in the morning instead of at night, as far as public input goes into this. I mean, what, the time is available mostly to just self-employed, unemployed, or retired users like myself. And I think if you would schedule this at night, you'd have a better response. The issue here is transparency, and I think there's an ongoing policy of limiting public input, and I think this kind of cripples the democratic process.
Steve, this is the second public hearing, though. We had the first one at 7 o'clock at night.
Okay, but...
So we usually have the 2 hearings for
okay, but I
2
just...
different times.
Okay. For me, the issue that isn't addressed is the non-conforming renewals, and I think instead of a request, there should be a formal application for a non-conforming renewal in which the section 0110.2604 with the 7 provisions required in the zoning ordinance be applied to non-conforming renewals. Thank you.
Any other comments from the public as far as any notices in the updated ordinance? Any questions from the board?
Well, a couple of good points as far as like pollution standards, should we have that listed somewhere? I mean, other than the minutes, but have it in here that all ordinances, whatever, will apply to state, local, federal, whatever, including not limited to like MPCA, that kind of stuff, just to have it in the document, or how does that?
Well, generally speaking, when a planning commission recommends approval or denial, well, approval, they recommend that you follow federal, state, and local rules and regulations. So kind of catches all of them at once. I think the idea behind number 6 here was that, you know, potential pollution hazard is just wide open, but if you're talking about, for instance, a feedlot, have you addressed it? Do you have your manure management plan? Do you have an engineer design for your manure basin, for instance? Those things are going to be specific to each application that comes in. So to try and list them all, everything potential pollution hazard in the county under a set of 15 criteria, this kind of just catches them, and it's going to be specific to each application that comes in. So that, it depends on what you're talking about, but definitely list them during the public hearing, or what potential pollution are we talking about, and get that in the minutes, because that's part of the record. And that's going to also hold the applicant's feet to the fire as far as addressing that.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners?
No, general comment, Steve brought it up too, you know, things like this too, I'd like to see in the future, like anything regarding some of these very controversial things done at night too, you know, we've done public hearing, I know we did the first public hearing, I thought it'd be nice to have like this one like we did with the terminals, or we did with more party at night too, just allow more people the opportunity to speak, so in the future, it'd be nice to have.
I think it works good by having one at night and one during the day.
I mean, some people don't know that it's done that, and they're advertised, but not great by the time the word gets out, you know, gives them another opportunity to, you know, it'd be nice to stay consistent with what we've been doing, so.
We can discuss that as we deal with it then.
I think what we tried to do is to make some ordinances more user-friendly, understandable, and I think we've done a good job with that. Is it perfect? Maybe not. We don't know until we get to use it. But most of it, I think, is pretty good. There's been some good comments out there.
I mean, it's ever evolving. It's a living thing.
It's never.
We've had amendments half a dozen times since I've been here. So about every other year, we're looking at something else, you know, trying to keep everything up to speed, you know, as things come up and address them as we go.
I think interviews too is.
Interview is going to be paid for.
Yeah, it's a key addition, you know.
Hey, real quick, on the top, just, it says approved by Terry and Garland. Why, out of curiosity, why those two?
They recommend approval. This is just for our office.
Oh.
Their notes and stuff. This was.
I was just curious what.
From the minutes from June 26th.
It doesn't matter, I was just curious what.
Holly's note or something.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah, those bold things are not in the ordinance.
No, that's right.
Yeah, I was just curious.
And I got a question in on page 7, there's a, something in parentheses that says, talks about Commissioner Walters stated that.
That was a part of the minutes.
What does the asterisk go to? Where does that refer to?
Oh,
that was at the first public
See
hearing.
the asterisk on page?
Oh, this referring to the.
Where does that go back to? I was looking for the other asterisk.
I think
It goes back to the discussion, because I did go to that first public hearing, and that's when they were talking about the different people, and I said that should be part of the ordinance, it should be done separately. So it does, I guess the other, but it was part of it.
I don't think there's another asterisk. I know what you're saying there. I don't know what it is.
I'm just trying to see where it was,
Okay.
what it was pertaining to.
Yeah, there's one.
Is that still in there?
No, what we'll end up with a final draft won't have any of the yellow, none of the red, none of this asterisk or parentheses. It'll all be in good verbiage here. So this is just kind of a nice. I thought this was nice to kind of go through this morning.
Yeah, it's good.
So if there's no other comments, we will close.
I have a question, and it's kind of pertaining to Bob. I didn't make the first meeting, and I think it's number 9, you had something said second farm dwellings.
Oh.
What did you come up with, or changes, or additions, or?
The definition's kind of the same, but it's going under interim use, where you can put a timeline on it instead of a conditional use. Or actually, a permitted use used to be where there's no time limit attached to it, and it's not recorded. This would record it with the farm parcel that it sits on, so that if the farm is ever sold, the person coming in would know that, okay, there's a temporary farm dwelling here, we need to address that. So what it's gonna be is it's gonna have a timeline set on it, and it's gonna be recorded with that parcel now, as opposed to before, it was just a simple zoning permit.
Okay, so you really haven't changed as far as one house on 40 acres?
No, that hasn't changed.
That hasn't changed?
Right. There is an additional manufactured home for medical reasons and for an extra farm worker or family member that's working on the farm. And that's always kind of been.
Okay, but now does that still go back to what you told me, if the second, like in my situation, if my great nephew wanted to move into the house, the farm's dead, he have to earn 50% of his living off the farm?
I think we looked at that too. We took the 50% out. That's not included now. Number 6 under it's under an interim use. Basically, I'll just say tell you what it says here. You need to meet Department of Health rules and regulations. Or that's temporary A. Let's see where it is here. Oh, second farm dwelling. Manufactured homes meet standards set forth in this ordinance if determined by the zoning administrator to meet the requirements of a temporary farm dwelling under section 29. And you're right, it used to say you had to have 50% of your income derived from the farm, but that's no longer the case.
Okay, so what is my case, but as far as, you know what my case is, Bob, that's what I'm saying.
But I don't want to bring your case out in
No, but I mean,
you want to explain
it's, again, on this one house on 40 acres, so there's 2 houses right now stand on one section. I mean, they're only like 150 feet apart.
Right. As long as both people are involved with farm operation, that looks like something we can really look into.
Okay.
Yep.
And if I'm not mistaken, too, a lot of that was put interim because of, I know we've had issues in the past where you have, 2 houses, or there's something going on, and then all of a sudden it gets changed hands. Well, then, yeah, and then it's still there, and then I know we've had people butting heads, neighbors, and this house was there.
Right.
This kind of eliminates that, right? I mean,
Yeah, that way it'll address that. So that the buyer comes in and buys the manufactured home that's supposed to be the second farm dwelling, he knows that, okay, there's a stipulation here on this. When they're going through the deed check, that'll raise a flag.
If he doesn't meet that or something, you would have to
pull that house back together.
Yeah.
I have a question. Why would you not simply want to insert the words all applicable federal, state, and local standards in front of that CUP, I believe it was number 6, I don't have the document in front of me, just to ensure that all applicable, that you don't choose one standard in one case and another standard in another case. It does not specifically make you adhere to one standard or another, or to identify the standard at which each individual case is used, but it just says all applicable federal, state, and local standards.
I thought that was added to every permit anyway, isn't it? Isn't it always added?
I don't think
As a
so.
condition.
I don't think it's on every permit. I've seen a number of conditional use permits, and that does not appear on there. So rather than relying that it's on the permit, put it in the ordinance. All applicable federal, state, and local standards.
So if I'm getting what you're saying right, so you're saying like, for instance, like in the preamble, it says pursuant to Minnesota statute of law, inclusive of Houston County Board maintains ordinance regulations, yada, yada, yada. And say the purpose of promoting health, safety, well-being, general welfare for Houston County, all state, federal, and local laws will be followed. You're saying like, put like wording.
Just all applicable federal, state, and local standards in the CUP finding.
Are you saying there, or are you saying in the
Findings of fact? We're talking about findings of
Or
fact.
in the ordinance in general,
He's
yeah.
talking about the findings of fact.
I'm just wondering, do we just put a simple sentence like that in the beginning of the document that nobody could ever come back and hang on and say, okay, wait a second, you didn't, like, it's there that everything. I understand what you're trying to get at. Like, everything, it obviously is gonna follow state and federal laws, because if you don't, there's issues, but I mean, just, you're saying, say that it should.
Say it. Yes, that would be good.
Good stuff.
Well, I'm just thinking, I don't know, Bob, just brainstorm, but is it possible just to put that, just a sentence in the beginning of this, it just says that Houston County with the ordinances is hereby.
Well, it is under purpose, under page 1.
Oh, okay.
Purposes, ordinances promote health, safety, and general welfare of the citizens of the unincorporated areas of Houston County, and to conserve the resources of the county by adopting the following policies. Where did I see it here?
So the place to add, Bob, is what you're saying is to put it right at the very beginning of where.
I think so, or like Justin said, preamble or the
That
purpose.
covers
Yeah, just maybe somewhere there, just a.
That covers every ordinance that we ever,
Yeah, because I mean, obviously you're gonna cover state and federal laws, but I mean, it just says that our intentions are to comply with. I mean, I'm fine, you know, to add that, or like you said, Bob, too, or purpose, you know, under subdivision 10s, we will abide by all state, you know, to,
I can put that in there.
I don't know, just, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Or does that make sense?
Under subdivision 10, on that purpose.
Yeah, are you saying in 10 or in section 1?
Either one, either one.
I'm just wondering if we should do something like that under section 1, then it kind of catches everything from that point on, you know? So that if you're talking septic, it's cut, if you're talking feedlots, interim use, you know, like, they catch all in the beginning there, like, I don't know, whether it's the preamble or the purpose or somewhere just having this as a, and I'm just thinking the preamble only because it says pursuant to Minnesota state statute, you're already talking about statutes, inclusive Houston County ordinances ordinance regulating the use of land in Houston County by districts, including the regulation of size, buildings, arrangements, lots, density, population, promoting health, safety, order, convenience, and general welfare of Houston County, all state, federal
That makes sense.
laws will be followed. You know, does that make sense? Maybe just
Yeah, just another sentence there that,
yeah. Yeah. And then if it's in the beginning of all this, then it kind of catches everything from that point on that, you know,
okay,
then there's no guesswork later on. Does that make sense?
yeah.
there's no other comments, we'll close the public hearing and
Motion to close.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
At this time, we need a motion to.
Move to reconvene.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now we need a motion to adopt the zoning amendments,
I make a motion to approve with the changes that were mentioned.
the change that Justin brought up about the purpose, okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thanks.
Thank you. Consent agenda, we don't have anything. Roxanne, issue updates. I did want to address the one fact that Kelly asked about the minutes. I actually was concerned about that too, so I called Jennifer, and I don't remember the attorney's name up there at MCIT, and she said if we took notes, as long as we're not making a decision and it goes to public hearing, we didn't take minutes. That's what she advised. So that we've been doing pretty detailed notes, so that we get before each one, and I'm sure you can get a copy of that if you'd like.
Well, I'd recommend that they be posted. I mean, the public really wants to know what's going on in those meetings, and I would recommend that you want to be as transparent as possible.
We got
in
that,
the
we can have it posted.
controversial.
Sure, that sounds fine.
I find it troubling that are they really passing baskets around?
I did not know that at
That
all.
was
I
very
never saw that happen
true.
myself, but,
That needs,
and I think that was at yesterday's meeting. Did they try to take anything from you, Miss? No. No, okay, I didn't think so. I
Well,
didn't see
they
it.
asked if she had a cell phone or a video camera and handed a basket for her to put it in if she did.
I didn't see that. I didn't know that. We can watch for that.
Well, it did happen.
Yeah,
It
okay.
did happen. Outrageous.
We'll make sure.
We'll make sure it won't happen again. Thank you. Highway Department, Steve and Justin will continue working on options.
Yep.
Courthouse jail issues. I think we have Tess here at this point. Any
You want
commissioner
Tess?
reports?
She's right here.
Well,
We'll
yeah,
do it
let's-
later. Commissioner reports, Steve?
yeah, I, planning and zoning meeting last Thursday night, and Bob will be bringing things to our meeting next meeting, to what we planned, or passed. And I went to the fly-in breakfast on Sunday, that was fun. That's about it.
No quiet here.
I just had department head meeting, and I went to fly-in breakfast, it was good.
I had the EDA Trails meeting in the Crescent where they're getting more defined on getting the bike trails into the county and just kind of resurrecting what they did before. And Friday I went to the solid waste annual meeting.
That trails, is that still talking like the Houston Crescent Trail or which trails?
Yeah, well, we're talking all the Houston County trails, but that's one they're working on especially is Houston to Hoka, Hoka to La Crescent.
So it's still on the docks or?
Right.
Good.
Yeah. Can I say one other thing? I'm sure that you guys probably got, I don't know, maybe you didn't get the same email that I did, but I do the Tourism Association meetings, and I'd like to go to the one that's July 16th and 17th. It's, they're just really good. They're bringing a lot of information back to our county and things with tourism, so I'd really like if we stay connected to it.
Where's that right?
It's in Albert Lee.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Anything else, Drew?
No, that's it.
I had a department head meeting, a solid waste annual meeting, which was very good. We just went for the morning, but there's a lot of alternative uses of that solid waste area. That was very amazing. And I had a study group on Monday. Approval of claims, human service license.
I'll make a motion that we approve claims, human services, and licenses, there's no.
Second?
Further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approve tax abatement for Donahue for incorrect acreage tax.
I'll make a motion we approve the tax abatement.
Second.
Further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And approve the findings for the Erickson mine. I think everybody got a copy of it, and that's just what was stated. We need a motion to officially
Move
sign
to
it.
approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
And that ends our regular business meeting, and now we are going to recess this meeting again and go into closed session with Tess.
Okay, motion to move into closed meeting.
Second?
Further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion to reconvene?
Motion.
Why we-
Well, yeah. Motion to reconvene.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Say something, don't
Move to adjourn? Oh, excuse me.
Just for the record?
There's nobody else there.
No, I purposely wanted us to do our business meeting so they could leave.
Should I read on the record? Purpose of our meeting was to discuss the labor negotiation strategies pursuant to 13D03 subdivision 1.
Move to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.